truly digitally inclusive multilingual internet. It's an important pillar to get the next billion users online. We understand that. We know that the all software applications needs to accept all our domain names and email addresses, irrespective of their script. It should work properly with all the applications, irrespective of going into the details of be it TLD, IDNs, and others. So I'm sure the experts today would cover up the discussions on the subject. We do have a training session of being taken up by Mahesh Kulkarni ji, and of course we are joined today by the two very seasoned speakers from the industry and the government. Mr. Anil Kumar Jain, he's a CEO for National Internet Exchange of India, NIXI. Thank you, Anil, for joining us today. And Dr. Ajay Data, he's of course the chairman of UASG ICANN and the CEO of Data Engineers Global Limited. Thank you, Dr. Data, for joining us and of course, helping us out spread the message of UA to the community, to various stakeholders, and of course, having a great focus on the subject of UA and multilingual internet as part of an important forum called IGF. So we are happy that as part of India IGF, you will be having further discussions on this area. Now, I would request Mr. Anil Kumar Jain ji to kindly deliver his special remarks. Sir, we would like to understand from you today. We have a mix of people from both the registrars as well as the industry and academia who have joined us today on an important UA training session. And since this is one of the important pre-IIGF session, we look forward to hear your special remarks on this occasion. Over to you, Mr. Jain.
Thank you, Sarika, and good morning to all of you. Sarika, Dr. Jeta, Mahesh Kulkarni ji, and other members from various areas in this particular seminar. First of all, as a chair of India IGF, I would like to welcome all of you to this particular event of the IIGF, which aims in spreading information about the internet governance, what is happening around the world, and also specific to the India chapter. Now, first of all, I'm thankful to Vicky and the chair of Linguistic Committee of IIGF, Sarika, in arranging this pre-IIGF meeting. Friends, if you, the Prime Minister of India has spoken some days back, saying that हमें गुलामी की जंजीरों से जो भी रिलेटेड मानसिकता है उन सबको दूर करना है, और उसमें एक बड़ी मानसिकता हमारी अंग्रेजी माध्यम को और अंग्रेजी माध्यम को यूज करवाना और उसको पुश कराना, वो हमारी एक अंग्रेजी माध्यमता है। तो एक तो ये important message from the top man of the country has come that we have to now start working, start thinking, and start delivering in the mother tongue which we have. Yesterday there was a session in Vallabhbhai Patel Vidyalaya in Delhi, where Honorable Home Minister has said that to the teachers and to the parents also who were there, that at home हमें अपनी भाषा में बच्चों से बात करनी चाहिए. You know, these are two important messages which I just want to recapture for all of you. It means that the country is moving in such a way that not only we have to receive the culture from one generation to another generation in our own mother tongue, but I think the language is the most important aspect of sending the messages which we have, giving the feelings which we have to the other person. And more important for India, because 88% of the Indians do not transact, do not converse in English. So it is more important that the new era which is coming up for all of us, which is a digital era, we must adopt in our own mother tongue, in our own language. So this is apt time when the entire ecosystem, which should include the hardware starting from the keyboard, from where we should receive the transcript in local language, the computing system which goes inside the computer, which includes the operating system, which includes the storage, which includes the processing powers, And also the display should be in local language. There are several agencies world over who are working in this direction. Most important are ICANN, which are represented by Dr. Ajay Dutta, who is here as a chair of this specialized group of Universal Acceptance Specialized Group, and United Nations through IGF. And this is the session which is organized as the India chapter of IGF. Both these organizations have adoption of digital internet, or we can say internet in multilingual. And there are a lot of talks. In fact, if you attend any one of the deliberations of ICANN or IGF, you see that good number of portion of speakers as well as time is spent on the multilingual internet. The reason is very clear. We are talking about 88% in India, but we are also talking about 60% or more than 60% world over. People do not transact in English. So time has come then when we have to really think, all of us, whatever level we are, that we have to prepare this digital economy, which is 1 trillion digital economy in local languages. As far as Nixie is concerned, we are providing the domain in all 22 official languages of India. And now we have started working and providing the digital identity to university and colleges and also to the villagers to start with the lowest rank, so that it goes and percolates not only in this generation but in future generation also. I want to give a good message before I close today, is that Government of India has started a project called Mera Gaon Meri Dharohar, where they have decided that all 650,000 villages will have their own website in local language, complete content in local language, and with the involvement of the villagers. And I am proud that Nixie is preparing the domain and email addresses for all the villages. So I think time has come when next time when Sarika will organize this particular meeting, I think a huge number of websites along with the domains will be available in local languages. Government of India has started two major projects in this. One is multilingual internet, and second is Bhashini. In multilingual internet, we are working to ensure that the entire ecosystem, which include the hardware, software, processing system, everything should be available in local languages to all citizens of the country. And second, Bhashini, as the word itself says, is collecting the content, analyzing the content, and taking this content to the right kind of people in their own language. So now we are integrating both efforts of multilingual as well as Bhashini. And Government of India has taken a lead in this. And I think it is right also, because government is the agency which goes and talk to the major population. And we hope that uh, taking academia, private organization, technical team together with a multi-stakeholderism, uh, India should be able to lead in multilingual internet in the world globally, and we should be able to set an example for all citizens of this world globally. Thank you very much, Sarika, for giving me this opportunity to talk to all the people who are concerned with multilingual internet. Thank you, and have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jain. Thank you. We'd like to thank Nixie for supporting this initiative of today. Also, we hope and we pray the last words of yours, which you mentioned right now in the session, that India should lead the multilingual internet in the world. We all are able to achieve it together. I can, of course, say that on behalf of IKILIN local chapter of UA, we would be completely happy to support this thing with the government and work with the government hand in hand for achieving this. I'm sure the members of our community would be also very, very happy to contribute in that. And we thank Nixie for leading the various initiatives for the country with respect to the multilingual internet. And we hope that we can reach the next level, like you mentioned, sir, when we have a next series of session for pre-IIGF for IIGF within our country. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. And thank you for mentioning about the various government initiatives and the focus from the various dignitaries in the country on this subject and how it is important for our country. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
With
Sarika.
this,
Thank you.
yes, thank you, sir. So with this, we move on to our next speaker. He is, of course, the chairman of a USG ICANN. He, of course, is the CEO of a company of XGen Technologies and, of course, a co-chair for our IT and ITS committee. So a person with multiple hats and, of course, who carries the message of UA across the world. Dr. Ajay Data, thank you for joining us today. And we would also like to understand from you, of course, as part of pre-IIGF, we started this series. We're doing this, and especially this training session for the registrars and the registries, which is being done today. So what is your expectation with respect to our country? How do you see India coming up with respect to on a front of UA with respect to the other parts of the world? And what all you think could be done further within our country to take it on the next stride under your guidance? And thank you, sir, for joining us and, of course, guiding us at various steps. So over to you, Dr. Data. Dr. Data, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Sarika ji, for doing this event on a very, very important topic for UA, and especially addressing the registries and registrars. That's a very important one because we are preparing ourselves. The world is preparing for the next revolution around internet. To understand the revolution, we need to understand a little bit of history of internet. What happened on internet in the past? So when the internet was getting started, these 7 top-level domain names. So those who understand top-level domain names are the right side of the dot, like .com. This is top-level domain name. They were the original, we call them top-level domain names, and programmers assumed some rules around them. And these were the rules which are on the screen, that there will be only 3 characters after the dot. There will be only A to Z characters in the top-level domain name, so ASCII characters. There will be only left to right, so you could write from left to right side, like we write com, so we don't write MOC, we write COM, like that. There will be no numbers, so the numbers were not allowed. And there will be only 7 top-level domains. So these 7 could be the only top-level domain names. They were not the rules given by anybody. These were the assumptions made by the developers while designing the softwares. So validate the valid domain name and valid email addresses. But the internet was obviously not that. Internet changed and we got many kind of domain names, and that created a universal acceptance issue. So we had the domain names now, which could have, other than the 7 characters, like .sky. In India, we have .sby, SBI for State Bank of India, like .tata for TATA, or .dabur for Dabur. And we could have more than 3 characters, and it could go up to 63 characters, including 1.64 characters. And you could have those top-level domain names with this much length. This changed. Another thing which changed is that it was no more ASCII. It could have non-ASCII characters like data.bharat. And these are all valid in the today's time. Internet has evolved. And you can see the corresponding examples of email addresses where you could have the mix and match of ASCII and IDN, Unicode at ASCII. And another example is left to right. Instead of left to right, you could have right to left script, which is an Arabic script. You could have domain names and email addresses on that side. Are our softwares ready to accept them? Are our softwares will accept them for registration of a domain name, for communicating with the email address with a customer brings on our software? So what will be the universal acceptance ready software? So these are the 5 pillars: accept, validate, process, store, and display. Which means if you have a website and I am able to type in my email address, in the last screen you can see ajay@data.bharat is actually my valid email address. Can I bring into your website and I can type in that email address? If you allow me to type in accept gets checked, then validate it as a valid email address, then process it for the purpose I am there on your website, store it and display it. All those things have to pass for that email address. The moment it happens, then it means accept, validate, process, store, and display gets taken care, and they become a UA ready software. It means you have a UA ready website or you have a UA ready software if you pass all the 5 tests. This is valid for registries and registrars too. So when I want to register a domain name, can I bring in my Hindi email address? And my colleague Mahesh Kulkarni is going to talk about it and technically in very much detail about what is required and what need to be done at registrars and registries to be UA ready. So I am going to touch only a very simple screen for you. Can you receive email? Because registrars are going to allow a registration of the domain name and email addresses. And the word is changing. Word is changing so fast that now the root zones have all the scripts of the word. Almost 56 scripts are already there in the root zone. All the Indian scripts or all the languages are in the root zone, which means whenever I can opens up the registration of the top level domain names, we would be able to see new top level domain names in almost all the script and all the languages or official languages. So I would be able to register rather than .bharat, I could probably have .ajay or .data as a top level domain name, and in all the scripts, Bangla, Tamil, Telugu, and all that stuff. Once they bring in, obviously these domain names will bring in the email addresses, and this will bring the new type of usage of the domain names and email addresses in the country. And hence it is important that registrars and registries support that and be ready the moment the new series of top level registration comes in. Another thing which is important is the communication with those customers. And I'm just addressing that part right now because most of the thing is going to be addressed by Mahesh Kulkarni, that can you communicate with that email address which I have, ajay@data.bharat. And the simple test could be, can you try to send me an email on that email ID? And this email ID is there on your screen, ajay@data.bharat. Can you type in and send me an email ID? And if you can, then you have at least the communication enabled on your email platform. If not, then you will not be able to communicate. You will not be able to send and receive. And to your knowledge, your Gmail or Google Workspace and Microsoft Office 365 are compatible right now to send you an email and receive an email. And there are some supporting softwares which we have also mentioned there. So you will be able to see them and use them in your setup whenever you want to. So that's all from my side. I will not steal the thunder from Mahesh Kulkarni around this, because he is going to deliver a very important message, an important solution to all of you. But just in case you are more interested in UASG to know more about it, there are some details. And of course, our FICCI ally in India runs a local initiative for UASG. Please contact FICCI and FICCI ally with Sarika and Sudhir and Vidit. They will be very happy to support you, include you, and guide you to the right process to become UA ready. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Data, for putting up a good start for this session today. Of course, detailing, giving an overview about the UA, why it is important, what all things needs to be done. So thank you for adding the technical flavor and various important aspects of UA, how it needs to be handled. And like you mentioned, of course, we have a full detailed technical session being taken by Maheshji immediately after your address. So I think as part of India, which is a population of 1.4 billion, I think UA seems to be it's a very, very important pillar pillar for our country when you talk about the inclusive internet, multilingual inclusive internet. So definitely the people who are attending today, especially the registries and the registrars, they understand that for digital inclusivity, this is highly important. It needs to be, and they need to make themselves UA ready. And that is what our next session is going to talk about it. Apart from the right skill building at the academia level, having the right kind of a traders. And as you mentioned, as part of IKIALI and local initiative chapter, we are also happy to do the handholding for the people who need some assistance with respect to getting themselves UA ready. We have the community of experts who are with us, who can help us in this, who can help in this process to get the, and it's not a very difficult process. Only thing you need to understand the right steps, right steps, and actually adhere to it. So that's something which needs to be done. So we have, and as part of our initiatives, both for pre-IGF and local initiative chapter, we would be having multiple of these sessions and for various stakeholders, like from 2 days from, I would say 3 days from now, on 4th of November, we are doing a hackathon supported by Everest, specifically on how to have a different stages of UA ready, your business to be UA ready. And it's kind of, we invite the participants who are listening today to kindly join us in that hackathon. We of course, we will be happy to announce prizes as well for your completion for the work, if you're able to do it on the same day. So we are doing this thing with the support of our community, our partner Everest and others. So we request everybody to join us. It's happening in Pune. We are doing it in, it's a physical event where we invite the coders and the website developers to kindly join us and be part of the journey of UA and also learn and implement with us. And also on the top of it, we also be happy to actually award you with your for your hard work. So we, as part of IKIALA, we will be happy to work on that with you. So thank you, Dr. Data, for setting up the tone. And as I mentioned, we are, as part of India, we are very grateful that as part of the chairman of a US global chairman for the UASG, we have been able to drive the initiative of UA in a very stronger and a coherent manner within the country under your guidance. And we look forward to more of your future guidance and presence at the various of activities related to the semester. With this, we move on to our next session, which is basically the presentation and address on UA readiness for registries and the registrars. We have Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni ji, who have joined us today. He's a director for Everest Systems and former senior director in CTEC, Government of India. Mahesh ji, we have heard the importance being given by the various, the political leadership, the bureaucrats and other leadership within the country on the importance of multilingual internet and the various initiatives being taken by the government. Of course, as part of the community, we have been contributing on those initiatives as part of local initiative chapter and the KLIA. We heard Dr. Data talking about what is UA, what are the various processes which needs to be taken it forward. We now look forward to your thoughts. We look forward to your thoughts that how do you think the people who are hearing on the other end, especially the registries and registrars, can make themselves UA ready? What are the things to be done? And your technical comments on how it can be easily implemented within our country. So, and thank you, sir, for joining us and supporting us this initiative. Over to you, Mahesh. So you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Actually, thank you very much. And let me share my presentation. Prior to that, I think I need to definitely thank Vicky for organizing this very important event. And multilingual internet, we have been talking about for a quite long time. But as was being told by even CEO Nixie, Ajay Anil Kumar Jain, as well as the Dr. Data, the UA becomes very important. It's a foundational requirement, just like a Unicode. So when Unicode started coming up, it was slowly being picked up. Basically, people started implementing slowly, just because of the fact that they have to change their systems and so on and so forth. But then it has resulted into having a truly multilingual, what is called as a communication, as well as the contents and everything put together with a single coding. I think UA also becomes a very important subject matter over here, and let us discuss about that. And certain things might appear complex, but they are not so complex when it comes to the implementation. Okay. So sharing the screen, sorry. Okay. I will put it in a presentation mode, and I will switch off my video just because 1 second. Okay. 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 I hope this is full screen visible to everybody.
Yes,
Yes.
Maheshji, now it is.
Okay. Great. Great. So I think a lot of groundwork has been done, and Dr. Ajay Data has touched upon the very fundamental parts of universal acceptance in a very simple and a lucid way. So I would like to just continue that portion and see to it today. I hope we do have registrars and registry people actually into this workshop, and we hope that that will get benefited. A lot of people will get benefited out of it. Okay. Just to bring everybody on the same page, I don't have to reiterate this particular portion. But that becomes very, very important as a to starting point of any domain name. So domain name just becomes your online identity, and it's like your bank account, or it is like your Aadhaar card or something of that sort. So it's an online account identity, and it is not interchangeable basically. So it's a unique to you only. So nobody can have that. And I think that is the power of the internet, wherein the domain name becomes a unique identity. And even the same happens with the email IDs also. So they become a unique identity. And you are 100% sure that if you write a mail to mdk@evaris.bharat, then it will 100% go to mdk@evaris.bharat and nobody else. So I think that's the power of the standards which are in place, and that's a power wherein people have come together to build such type of a domain name system. Okay. Having said that, actually, when it's a very simple basically process, wherein a user types, let us say evaris.in, that is just from the perspective of a user to understand. Otherwise, internally it get converted into an IP address and then it gets resolved. So I think these are a starting point. I just wanted to make sure that we just touch upon when we talk about domain names. We need to know the definition of a domain name. Yeah. Okay. So this I think was covered by Dr. Data, but let me tell you certain things in more details. So as was being told earlier that there were only earlier 8 top level domains which were being delegated by ICANN, like .com, .res, then .edu, okay, .arpa, and so on and so forth. So they were limited to only 3, with the exception of .arpa, okay, 3 characters. And this is the structure of the domain names basically. So one can have www.cafe123.com, and similarly one can have in the local language. I will come to the local language separately. So the ICANN has started a program which is called the new GTLD program. And the new GTLD program, it allows now you to have a domain name of your own choice. That's a very, very important, what is so called the availability, which has been done. This is one part. So I can have a domain name, like if I afford, I can have a domain TLDs, which is .mdk or .tata or .technology or .mcdonald, and so on and so forth. So that's something the internet has changed drastically with the availability of a generic top level domain. So this is generally termed as a generic top level domains, and it includes also the previously 8.1 like .com, .res, .edu, and so on and so forth. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, you have got this .com, the red one is something called the TLD, which is called the top level domain. Then separated with the dots is called the second level domain, and this is the third level domain. Okay. And generally this is general term being used for here is called the .com. Okay. This is used for TLD. Okay. This is TLD. So in the TLDs, we have got something called the CCTLD, and we have got a GTLD. So .in generally becomes something called the CCTLD, that is the country code top level domain. And now we do have a internationalized domain names, wherein one can have the domain names in their own language, as you can see on the screen. And there also you have got a IDN GTLD rather. Okay. And you also have something called the IDN CCTLD. Okay, IDN CCTLD. So IDN CCTLD is something called the .bharat. While if you talk about CCTLD, ASCII CCTLD, that is something .in, .fr, and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is how some of the works have been started in the ICANN side, and then the USAG group was formed, as was been told by Ajay Data. So these are the timelines of ICANN progress on IDN TLD. So actually, IDN TLD's work started much before in the year 1999 itself. Okay. So some, I think it was registered with an emoji, and it was long back. It was 1993. So which means that you can permit the Unicode character into the so-called domain names. And a proper guideline was been produced in the year 2003. Then ICANN introduces .test. So the .test IDN TLDs in multiple scripts in the root zone in 2007. While parallelly, we also started in India, we started working towards what is called the internationalized domain names, especially .bharat in different languages. And we got all the stakeholders put together. A lot of so-called the workshops were conducted. A lot of inputs were received from various experts toward this, including the language people and so on and so forth. And we, as a India, we made our own policy, IDN policy, basically. And then finally, at the end of the day, we worked with very closely with ICANN on this subject matter, and we were able to get all the 22 language domain names, basically. And there are certain challenges, how the challenges are being resolved, and those I will cover in great details, basically. So then there is one, there are certain important programs which ICANN started apart from just IDN or implementation guideline. This is called the label generation rule set. I will come to that separately, but just remember that this label generation rule set what is very, very important because there are so many scripts around the world. So if you look at a Unicode latest version, you got something like 159 scripts and languages are being covered. Okay, and then we do have different community-based panels, generation panels. So we do have a new Brahmi generation panel, which takes care of some of these label generation rule sets, as well as a variant generation rule set. Okay, and then this is the future. So around 2014, 2013-14, we did have all the 22 Indian languages domain name available, including the Sanskrit. So if you can, and Urdu also, basically Urdu, Sindhi, Kashmiri, other words. Okay, so this definition was being stated by Ajay Data also, but I just for a repeat sake, I will try to demystify this portion. So what is the universal acceptance basically? So the universal acceptance is that all the valid domain names, when I use the word domain names, valid domain names, these are IDN domain names as well. Okay, even the ASCII, we have got something called the new domain, new TLD, as well as we have got something called the long TLD, which I will cover separately. So all the valid domain names and email addresses are accepted, validated, stored, processed, and displayed correctly and consistently by all internet enabled application devices and system. And actually that is on par with ASCII. Okay, so today if you look at it, the ASCII domain names and email IDs are seamlessly working and being supported at various levels. A similar way, the universal acceptance expects that the internationalized domain name or the new GTLDs which are there should be accepted, validated, stored, processed, and displayed correctly and consistently by all internet enabled application and devices and systems. So this is some fundamental what is so-called that testing, if you can use the word, for any software for that matter, basically. Okay, so this process applies to any software, and that has been segregated as a gates. So these are all different gates basically of testing a software basically. So if you go to the website and you try a domain name, then it should be able to, you should be able to type it out first and foremost in Indian language or whatever language is there, and it should be able to accept. The system should not reject the characters. Then it should be able to validate as far as the certain rules and regulations goes. Then we should be able to store that into the databases. So you require to have selecting proper encoding to store data into the database. Otherwise, it will reject the characters, and it should be able to process on that. And finally, at the end of the day, it should be able to display in your own language. So that's how the 5 different criteria of universal acceptance are there. Okay. Now, prior to moving to the basically the exact requirements in terms of what is to be required at the registry and registrars, I would like to little bit demystify certain things over here in terms of the multilingual diversity, some facts and figures. So as you are fully aware that we do have numerous languages basically. So in one of the surveys done by Dr. Devi, he highlighted that totally 19,500 languages and dialects are there in India. Wherein when I use the word 19,500, it indicates that there are at least 10,000 people and above who are practicing or using that 19,500 is not only the languages, but the dialects, various dialects are there. So if you look at Marathi being spoken in Maharashtra or Marathi being spoken in Nagpur, you will find a difference basically. So every 10 kilometers, you will find a dialect variation. Okay. We do have a 438 living languages basically. And as you are aware, we have got 22 scheduled languages, officially recognized languages which are there. And in that official recognized languages, we have got a little bit of, I'm not going to use the word complexity, but I'm going to say we do have a challenge that we do have some languages originating from Brahmi script. Those are 19 languages which are generally written from left to right. So if you look at Devanagari, then we use Devanagari as a script. Devanagari becomes a script, while Hindi, Marathi, Konkani, Nepali, these are the languages which are written using Devanagari as a script. So language is I can term language as a spoken form, while a script as a something called the written form of a language. And then there are rules basically for script also that I will demystify. The way we have got rules for phonetics, the similar way there is something rules for how you have to write the word. What are the rules and regulations towards writing a word? So those are called the script grammar. While we do have the rules for the spoken part of it, which are the phonetics part of it. Okay, and the right to left scripts are also been there. So we generally use the right to left scripts are Sindhi, Kashmiri, and Urdu, where they are written from left to right to left basically. So we do have a challenges in terms of two different. The system should accommodate both the directions. One is left to right and right to left, and these are some of the complexities which are being just handled basically. Okay, and to represent all the 22 Indian languages onto the digital medium, we require something called the 11 scripts to be represented. Okay, for the official scripts, I am talking about the official language basically. There are additional scripts, but they are not currently part of the official standard. But however, in the Unicode, if you look at a Unicode, we have got more than what 22 languages are there. So we have got a Silotanagari, we have got a Nandanagari, we have got a Modi, we have got a Brahmi. So these are the scripts as well as the languages being encoded into the Unicode. I think from that perspective, we are really ahead in terms of representing our Indian languages onto the digital medium. And as was been told by Ajay Data, that even in case of the domain names, we are much more ahead actually. We do have all 22 Indian languages domain name, unlike any country. So we are the first, I think, in the world to have so many TLDs, CCTLDs, and that too operational. And thanks to Nixie, as well as thanks to Mighty for supporting this particular cause and mission, basically. Okay, so these were the fundamental requirements in terms of actually getting delegated the so-called the top level domain CCTLD, and then finally some registry should be able to operate that. And as was been told, Nixie was operating .in is operating .in as a registry for India. And similar way, they are now operating .bharat. So one can have now domain names under .bharat. And once you have got a domain name, you can have an email ID around that. Okay, so these are the fundamental requirements. I think we are much more ahead on this particular term as globally. So languages families are this. I am not getting into the great details of that, but you have got Indo-Aryan, you have got a Tibeto-Burman, Dravidian, Austro-Asiatic, and Munda family. So these are like Assamese, Bengali, Dogri, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri, Konkani, Maithili. These are the languages. We have got a Bodo, Manipuri, Kannada, Malayalam, and Santali. Okay, so just remember that we have got a 4 language family, and 22 scheduled languages which are there. And these 22 scheduled languages are written, some of them are written using left to right script and some of them are using right to left script. Okay, so unlike Latin or Roman, we do have a complexity, because if you look at a Roman or Latin, you got just a very simple what is called that set representation. Like we have got just A to Z and some few control characters and some few punctuation marks here and there. But if you look at the Indian languages, we do have a great number of characters which are there. And if you do the combinations of the character, then they might be in some few thousands also. Okay. So one important part is that we have got one script and many languages. So as I told you, that Devanagari becomes a script, while Hindi, Marathi, Konkani, Nepali, Sanskrit, Bodo, these are the languages using Devanagari as a script. So we need to take care of those part also, that we have got a one language, one script, many languages. The other part, if you look at it, we have got a many scripts representing one language. Okay, that is also another side. So this, so if you look at a language like Santhali, it is written in Roman, it is written in Olchiki, it is written in Devanagari, it is written in Oriya, and it is written in Bangla. So we have got one script, many languages, and many script, one language. So why I'm telling this, because these are some of the fundamental study which has gone into the evolution of the internationalized domain name system. And if we are able to handle, or if the domain name system is able to handle complex scripts like Indian scripts which are there, then I think our job is done over there. Okay, and that is what I am going to demystify, that a lot of work has happened behind this when you see internationalized domain operating, or even an email operating into that. So another side of this is that if you look at the Roman inputting mechanism, so you have got a keyboard, a QWERTY keyboard, or even today you can input with the speech part and so on and so forth. But the alphabets are limited. So and then there is one-to-one correspondence. So if you type it from a keyboard, suppose you want to type a word, something called as a good. So I am going to type G, then O and D, and this is something called the linear script. Okay, so there is I think Sudhir, I was I think offline for something.
Sir, yes, sir, you froze down for some time. Your screen has vanished.
Okay, I don't know why it happened, but okay.
You can share something.
Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir, it is.
And where I stopped, I don't know, but I think this was the slide where I was trying to.
Yes, this was one.
Okay. Yeah, this was the one. Correct. So as I was explaining, sorry for this interruption, and I will try to catch up the portion which we missed out. So as I said to you, Roman or Latin, which is generally used by people for English inputting, it has got one-to-one correspond between what you type, what you store, and what you display. So if I type good from the keyboard, then the code of G, I press a key G, the code of G gets stored into the system, and then finally the shape of G is being picked up and from a table, and it is displayed on the screen. So it is one-to-one correspondence, unlike Indian languages. So in Indian languages, if you look at it on the screen, we have got something like the word kitab is being written over here. And if you notice that carefully, the kitab word has got actually 5 characters which are there to input. So if I want to type kitab, then I enter k, then I enter e matra, then the t, then the b, then the a and the b. So these are the key sequences which I am inputting from the keyboard. And while you see on the keyboard, on the display side, you see only 3 syllables. So in Indian languages, Indian languages are syllabic in nature. So we generally call it as an akshar. Okay. So key becomes an akshar. So it's a unit of phonetic unit basically, and key becomes an akshar, ta becomes akshar, ba becomes akshar. So we have got three akshars over here, which means that this is the akshara formation. Rules are expected to be within the system to display or even store or to process the Indian languages things over here. So as I said to you, we have got akshara formation. So there are 5 characters which you are inputting. However, on the screen you can see only the 3 aksharas over there, and then which necessarily mean that there is no one-to-one correspondence between what you type from a keyboard, what is stored into the system, and what you display onto the display side or a print or onto the print. So there is no one-to-one correspondence. One important point which I said to you was that there requires a reordering also, which means that depending upon the type of keyboard which you are going to use for inputting, suppose you are using a typewriter keyboard, which is a mechanical device, then generally the typewriter keyboard works on a fact that the way you see, the way you type, which means that if I am supposed to type kitab, then I am seeing the e matra first, and then the k, then the t, then the a, then the b. So I am going to type from the typewriter keyboard e matra first, then the k, then the t, then the a and the b, which is unlike our phonetics. Okay, so which necessarily mean that if you look at an inscript keyboard, if you try to input from that, then you will be inputting from the way you speak, the way you write. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the different inputting mechanism, the way you speak. So I speak kitab, so the first pronunciation of k comes first, then the e matra comes second, then the t, then the a and the b. That is the way the inscript keyboard behaves, and it behaves on the fact that the way you speak, the way you write, and hence I enter kitab, and there has to be reordering within the system. So if I enter k and then the e matra, then automatically the e matra should come first. Basically, this is how the reordering has to work. One important point also is that whatever you input, probably in certain cases, the traces of what you input may not be there in the output at all, like ka, halanta, sh, what you see on the screen. So totally 3 shapes are different. Ka is separate, the sh is separate, but it renders out a totally different shape. And these are some of the things which are complexities which are been already handled. Let me tell you, I'm just giving this background for people to implement more efficiently certain things. So if you have got a basic background of this, then you will be able to understand why certain libraries are required, why certain changes are required, and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah. Now, I explained this particular portion. I explained also the inscript and typewriter and phonetic keyboard. So generally, phonetic keyboard is been used by people basically. Okay. And phonetic English in the sense, if I want to write Mera Bharat Man, then I input MERA, BHARAT, MAHN Man. So that's called the phonetic English. And I explained to you about inscript, and I explained you about the typewriter also. Now, apart from having the one to many, many to many correspondence between the script and the languages, and all these different syllable formation rules and so on and so forth, and even the so-called the reordering rules, we do have a challenge of alternate forms. So this is the word anna, which has been written, and the meaning of this is the Marathi word, which means food, and it is written in 3 different forms, and all 3 forms are acceptable. Similar way, this word bittu is also written in 2 different forms, and both the forms are acceptable forms basically. So this particular form, which is we generally call it as stacked forms, like ta halanta u matra, which is called the vertical stacking, while this is called the horizontal stacking. So these are having advantages and disadvantages both, because this is most prominently in use where the on the mobile previously, where the screen size was limited. Generally, you don't have that much of space between 2 lines, then this type of horizontal conjunctions are being used. Okay, so just remember that we do have our alternate forms also, and this might have a problem in something called the even the domain name system. So okay, so these are important parameters which you will have to really look at it, or at least keep it in mind. Then we have got alternate spellings also. So there is an alternate spelling of Hindi, tasveer. So what happens to this basically in the domain name system? So we will dwell upon that. So whatever the rules and regulations on domain name system are for ASCII, we have not changed that majorly. We are just carried forward, because some of the fundamental things of DNS you cannot change at all. And that is where we'll have to look at those type of a constraint. And on those constraints, we started working on that. And this is where some of the policies matter have come up. So this is Hindi written with Bindi and written with Halanda. So what happens to this, whether they should go to the same website or they should have two different websites. So what ASCII talks about, let us see what the ASCII talks about in terms of different spellings. Okay. Then these are the complexities in our fonts basically. So we have got something like a main component like a curve, and then you got a ascender and you got a descenders, and you got a matras and you got a trakars and so on and so forth. It's a really complex basically. If you look at a Vedic Sanskrit, or if you look at a normal Sanskrit also, then you have got some additional accent markers like udatta, anudatta, and so on and so forth into the system. Okay. Then if you look at a Urdu and Sindhi Kashmiri, then these are the two different scripts which are being used for writing Urdu, Sindhi Kashmiri. This type, what you see, it's called as the Nask type. This is called as the Nastalic type. And this Nask type is generally, if you look at it, it looks like written on a imaginary or a virtual baseline. Okay, so it grows horizontally only. A little bit of up and down is there in terms of the ascenders and descenders, but it grows horizontally. And this is mostly been used in Arabic countries. Okay, Arabic world. Okay, if you go to UAE and other places, this is the very script prominent over there of usage. While in India and even in Pakistan, for example, we are using Nastalic script. Basically, this is the highly calligraphic script, and it's a very beautiful script. But if you look at the complexity of the script, see, it's like this script is grows vertically as well as horizontally, which necessarily mean that it can start from the top of the page and can end in the bottom of the page, a single word or single sentence. And that's a complexity. And if you look at the fonts basically which are being developed and designed, which necessarily mean that you require it works on something called the shape joining technology, which necessarily means that you got a different shapes basically to represent the whole language or the script, and then you join them together, just like I shown an example kitab. So I got a key and then the e matra, then it joins together. So the font development becomes a very crucial part, and the domain name system especially is also highly dependent upon what type of font you are using into the system, and one has to be very careful in terms of the usage of the font as well. Okay. Having given this background of Indian languages to you on the script side, basically, especially, it's not to scare you people, but it was to just highlight that these are some of the things which are being taken care internally at different level. Like some of the things are already been taken care at operating system level, so you don't have to worry about those things basically. And we will see to it that what exactly from the domain names perspective we require. Okay. So these are the ASCII domain, which was been talked by Ajay Data. So we have got a different categories of ASCII domain: ASCII.ASCII, ASCII.NewShort, ASCII.NewNow. NewShort in the sense that apart from the 8.1 which are there, if you take a GTLD like .isu, .mdk, .sbi, then that become NewShort. Okay, so those domain names which are apart from 8, but having a character limit of 3, one can name, or it has been termed as a ASCII.NewShort. Okay, these are just terminology to understand. New long, because why new short is being defined, just because of the fact that somehow for validating the domain name, people use whitelisting, which necessarily mean that on a website one can have whitelisting only .com, .res, .edu, and apart from that any TLD it will not accept, and that is what called the whitelisting. And hence from the UA perspective, UA is not all about IDNs. UA is all about ASCII also as well as the IDN also. So in ASCII, it should be able to accept the new short, and it should be able to accept new long. New long in the sense the TLD more than 3 characters long, because earlier restrictions were 3 characters. Now there is no restriction. One can have the TLD up to 64 characters basically, which are there, or 62 bytes or 64 bytes. So one can have dot technology, one can have dot McDonald, one can have dot have Mahesh, and so on and so forth. So these are called new short and new long. And if you look at an internationalized domain name, we have got different categories of international domain names. So don't worry about those. But it necessarily means that we can have domain names in one own language. Okay. And one can have a combination of that. So idn.ascii, ascii.idn, rtl.rtl. rtl.rtl is right to left script. So arabic.arabic. or it can be for the languages like Urdu or Sindhi and Kashmiri and so on and so forth. So these are some of the examples on the right side of your screen. Bharatbhasha.bharat, which is a example of IDN.IDN in Hindi. The other example, bharatbhasha.com, is IDN.ASCII. The third example is IDN.IDN in Gujarati. And then the fourth example is IDN.IDN in Punjabi. So I hope this point is very clear, that we have got a ASCII domain name, new short and new long for UA compliances, and we have got an internationalized domain name for UA compliances. Okay. Now, if you really look at a new GTLD program, which the ICANN has started, from that perspective, what has happened till date? So we do have something close to around today 154 IDN TLDs basically. Okay, TLDs, which include CCTLD as well as GTLD, means generic top level domains also, as well as a country code top level domain. So that's something like a really encouraging figure, that we go to 154 and they are operational. Okay. And the IDN TLDs delegated represents 37 languages in 23 scripts. So these are the timeline, which I'm not going into details, but these are the timelines in which one can have the delegated CCTLD and revoked GTLD. Revocation was only a few basically. So as of today, 2000, I think 21, we did have around 1500 active TLDs, consisting of 153 IDN TLDs, mostly CCTLDs, as of 22nd January 2022. It is very fortunate that it includes India's 16 IDN CCTLDs covering 22 Indian languages. When I use the word 16 CCTLD, means, for example, .bharat. So .bharat covers some Hindi, Marathi, then even I think Konkani. So these are the languages, Boro. These are the languages which are covered in under the .bharat. So that's why we require 16 IDN CCTLD and not 22. Okay, but the 16 IDN CCTLD covers 22 Indian languages, and it includes the Perso-Arabic family also, like Urdu, Sindhi, Kashmiri is also there. So one can have domain names going to the NICSI. One can have the domain names in all 22 Indian languages. So while you test your software basically for whether it is a UA ready or not, ICANN has produced the USAG group of ICANN has produced certain test cases, a lot of huge documentation. A very beautiful documentation is available on uscg.tech, and one can have reference to those documents. It is written in a very, very simple way, and if you read the document, I think you will understand. So there is nobody required to teach you basically. So it can be done on your own, and that is how the documentation is made. So these are some of the test cases. One can try the test cases inside the. Let us take a website, for example, and this is the form of a website, and you are inputting an email or expecting an email from the client, and you are inputted this. So it has shown me saying that please enter the company name, which necessarily means that my email ID here got accepted, which means that IIT Bhilai, this site for this particular category of email, like ascii@ascii.newlong, it works basically. So it means that it is already compliant with the stage 1 of universal acceptance. So stage 1 says that it should support new short and new long. That's the stage 1. So international is a new long, and hence it was able to accept, and hence the IIT Bhilai website is actually UA compliant first stage. Okay. Now, if you look at this particular what is called the email, which consists of a Unicode code points or UTF-8 code points, or we can say language code points, then I think it is giving an error. So it says a part followed by it should not contain a symbol. So it is not accepting the symbol. Now this is the culprit. The main culprit is the HTML tag which has been used basically. So HTML, if you are fully aware, then HTML input element type basically people use different types basically. One is the text type, one is the email type. So if you use the email type, then that email type currently doesn't support the Unicode characters, and hence it throws an error. So then what is the solution toward that? We will come to the solution, but however, just since we are on this topic and on the slide, the solution is that you use a text attribute and write your own pattern, or write your own algorithm, use the libraries to validate the particular email ID. Okay, so this is how certain things are supposedly to be done. Okay, so it is even not accepting the RTL to RTL. Okay, I got a 10 to 15 minutes now, but I will try to cover up some of the things which are important in terms of what registry and registrar should do in this case. Okay, so this is an ASCII email. So I don't want to get into the details, but if you look at the mail structure, then there is something called the @ and there is some characters basically separated by a dot onto the right hand side of that, and there is something called the left hand side of the dot. So left hand side of the dot is termed as the mailbox or a local part, while the right side of the @ is being termed as the domain part. So you are fully aware as a registrar and registry members and the developers also that the domain part previously was only limited to LDH, that is called the letter, digits and hyphen. So letters are A to Z, digits are 0 to 9, and hyphen. These are the only characters are being used for representing the domain part. Okay, this is one. And the L means letter. The letter comes from which portion? So it comes from the ASCII repository, which means that you are having letters only A to Z. That's all. Okay, so this is the limitation in terms of the ASCII domain part. Now, if you look at a mailbox local part, a similar thing is there, that LDH is there, but apart from LDH, like letter hyphen, certain additional characters are permittable. Okay, like one can have exclamation MDK @evaris.in, something of that sort. So some of the printable characters and unquotable, unquotable characters are permitted, which are being shown on the screen. Okay, and also the quotable characters, like special characters, like as you can see on the screen, the colon or the closing the less than sign or greater than sign are permitted within the quotes. Okay, so but still, if you look at it, the number of characters being used for the domain part as well as the mailbox part are still limited. Okay, and when I say limited, the job becomes exceptionally simple, that which characters are permitted, which characters are not permitted, that we know for sure. And there is no great algorithm which is required to validate them. So one can have a regex pattern, just a simple regex pattern, and then validate that. Okay, so if you look at a regex pattern, which means that if you want to validate this email, then what you will try to do, you will try to figure out that at the top side you should have only one @ you should not have multiple @ so then once you find out an @ you split that before @ and after @ then you store that, and then you split the left side onto the dot and try to get the labels out of it, and then validate whether they contain the valid characters or not. So this is how the ASCII mail works basically. Okay, now if you look at an ASCII domain names, they are still we can say that 100% not foolproof. Okay, it's not a negative side, but yes, it poses a threat basically. And today, so what I'm trying to make a point is that even ASCII domain names do have an issue of phishing. So when I use the word phishing, then there are two types of parts which are coming into the mind. One is something called the homographs. Homographs is termed as a similar looking characters. Okay, similar, confusingly similar looking characters, while homophones are the pronunciations. So if you look at a spelling like Shirke, so there are two ways in one can write the spelling Shirke, SHIRKE and SHIRKEY. Okay, and both are same spelling, what is to call the representation basically, but then visually they are different. Okay, visually they are different, and hence if you look at the what the policy, domain policy, ASCII domain policy says that it doesn't, it only looks at the visually confusing similar characters, and it doesn't look at something called the homophones. It doesn't take care of the homophones. So color.com and color.com, though the meaning is same, they will translate or they will resolve into two different websites. Okay, please remember this. Similar way, localization.in and localization.in, where S and Z are different, they will resolve to two different websites, and it is depending upon the client to take both of them. If somebody tries to use your brand, then I think one need to be careful that okay, I will take both of them. So if I got a site something like color.com, then I will take both color with this spelling and that spelling. And but however, as I said to you, since they are not confusingly similar, they will resolve to two different websites. Okay, now the fishers basically, or attackers try to use some certain tricks which I can show you to you, like vishwakosh.com and vishwakosh.com. If you look at it carefully, the second Vishwakosh which has been written is with a double V. Okay, but at a smaller point size, the double V looks at as a W. So these are some of the things, even challenges in the ASCII domain name. But these challenges are not been addressed by any, because it is limitless to address such type of a challenges, and it is impossible to have such type of a so-called that checks and cross checks and so on and so forth. The fundamental cross check which has been done here is just a homograph. Similar way, ICICI.com and ICICI.com on the screen, it looks similar, but the second one is not ICICI.com. It is LCLCI.com. So if you can see, both of them appear simple at a smaller point size if you look at into the browser path. Similar way, there is a confusing characters like 1 and L. Then we have got a confusing with 0 and O, and so on and so forth. After the last point which I wanted to just make is that if you look at Microsoft.com, this Microsoft which has been written in the first is with R and N put together. So if R and N are actually joined together or placed side by side, it appears to be M. Only a small difference is that there is a little gap inside this R and N, while here the gap is not there. So which one can use such tricks to fish you out basically. Okay. And one important point is that domain names necessarily may not be meaningful. So I can take xyz.com. So it's a valid till the time I use the characters which are okay with me. Okay. So this is how things are there. The phishing sites, as I explained to you, 1 and L at a smaller point size can create a trouble for you. Now come to the IDN part of it. So we have got a similar structure. In IDN, we have got same there is an @ sign. Then there is something called the domain part. There is something called the mailbox or local part. However, the rule remains the same, that for the domain name, the rules, the internationalized domain name, the rule remains the same. LDH, use of LDH in domain part. So if you talk about a LDH part in the domain part, which necessarily means that the L comes from now here from something called the Unicode repository, which means that you have got around 1.5 lakh characters to choose from 159 modern horizontal scripts. So that's a huge number of characters, and those characters which are there into the Unicode, I can a little bit tell you further that not all characters are permitted within. If you look at a Devanagari, or if you take the case of a Hindi language, suppose we are represented using Devanagari, then we are not permitting all characters like danda, double danda. These type of characters are not permitted just because of the fact that they can get confusingly similar within the script and across the script as well. So this is how the internationalized mail is being structured, that it uses a LDH formula only, but L coming from the Unicode repository. So there are 1.5 lakhs characters, as I explained to you. I repeat this portion, and 150 representing 159 parts, and this cannot be in any which way validated using something called the regex pattern, because it's not all about number of characters, but it is all about the rules of formation of different characters, that which character comes first, which character comes later on. So these are all rules and regulations which each and every country, each and every language is been made, and it has been represented into the ICANN. Okay, so one can now have a presence of Unicode characters in the mailbox part, as well as the presence of Unicode characters into the domain part. And as I said to you, it cannot be validated using something called the regex, and the label should be in normalized form. I don't know whether people are aware of this terminology, but just to give a fact that let us take a character A. Okay, this one. So you do have in the Unicode code point, you got a code point for A separately, then you have got a code point for A separately, and one can actually combine them together to produce a, and A also has got a separate code point, which necessarily means that this A has got two representation. One is a and matra, and a singular character A, and that is what Unicode normalization says, that if there are two characters like this and matra, then it has to map to a singular character which is A. So this is called the NFC. In a very simple and layman term, this is called the NFC, which is the labels used in a normalized form. Okay, and one requires libraries for registration and validation. So it is not as simple in terms of the ASCII email. One requires a different libraries for registration and validation, which characters to permit, which characters not to permit, and so on and so forth. Okay, and mailbox and local part is as per the service provider or language or user requirement. So it is necessary that ICANN doesn't or USCG doesn't talk about majorly. It provides some certain recommendation that what should be used in the mailbox, but there are no specific guidelines which are there for validation of the local part. This has to be dependent upon the local service provider or the user itself. Okay. So you are fully aware that the domain name system works only in ASCII. Okay, so it is expecting only LDH characters basically. Then how the Unicode or internationalized domain name are supported? So the international domain name are supported with the same very simple technique wherein we will use the word client. When it goes to the resolution purposes, it has to get converted into something called as a Punicode, and Punicode is nothing but something called as an ASCII conversion of your domain name. Okay, it's a ASCII conversion, which means that the Unicode domain name is converted to a Punicode, which is the ASCII encoding, and then the resolution basically happens. And the conversion is a lossless, which means that one can convert from Punicode to Unicode, and one can convert from Unicode to Punicode back, and no loss is there within that. Okay, so this is how the in the internationalized domain names or emails are supported into the domain name system. Okay. So homograph attacks, as I explained to you, we have got apple.com, which has been fully represented using all these particular ASCII characters. While if you look at this, though it appears same, only for representation purposes, I made it a little red over here. But this A is coming from a Cyrillic small letter A, and which is a character 0430. It may be likely that you go to apple.com and or you click on the apple.com and this apple.com, but since it consists of a Unicode characters, it will not generate this. It will convert into Punicode, which necessarily means that if you look at a domain name system, or even the client side on the browser side, if you have got any character which is out of the ASCII range, LDH, then it will get converted into Punicode. Okay, and this is how it will not take you to the same site, it will take you to a different site. So I covered this portion. So there are challenges. Basically, we have got a single script confusable. Okay, so like 101 L0 L.in, 101.in, DZD, and these are something called as a single script confusable. Okay, so that which means that within the script you have got a confusing characters. Single script confusable meaning is that within the script you have got those characters. Mixed script confusable. So you have got a mix of Latin and Cyrillic. PayPal.in, but this PayPal is using Latin character set, while here the A, which is using the second one, is coming from the Cyrillic character set, which is a small letter A. Okay, so we have got something called a single script confusable. We have got a mixed script confusable. I will give a small example to you in terms of let us say Devanagari. So if you look at a matra, okay, of Devanagari, it gets confusingly similar with something called the alif of Urdu. And hence, basically, there are certain rules and regulations which are being made by the registry as well as by the ICANN that script mixing is not permissible. Okay, yeah. So this is whole script confusable. Whole script confusable, especially, is very, very important into the TLD portion of it. It may happen that there are 159 languages across the world and a script. It may be likely that they may confuse with each other. The TLD itself can get confused with each other, and hence the ICANN has to be extremely careful in terms of delegating the TLDs, and they have to compare, they have to see to it that there are no confusingly similar characters being used within the TLDs, and there are certain rules and regulations which are being made. There is a bidirectional proofing, there is a syntax proofing. Okay. Having said that, just another, I think, Sarika, how much time do I have?
Sir, you can take 5-7 minutes more. So would
Okay,
that be
fine.
okay?
I think that should be okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm just coming to the solution part of it now. See, I have given you a background. This background was essential just to understand that what are you dealing with. Okay. If you know the background, I think your implementation becomes exceptionally simple. If you understand it clearly, then I think there is no issue for you to implement. It is as writing a small piece of code, and it can be done. Now, these are certain complexities which I explained to you, but those are already been handled in terms of something called the protocols. So you may be hearing about IDNA protocol. Okay. So there are two types of protocol. One is a IDN 2003 protocol, and another is an IDNA 2008 protocol. IDNA 2003 protocol was the older one, while IDNA 2008 protocol is the newer one, and it has been all the registry as well as the registrars should use IDNA 2008 protocol, and they should today not permit any domain name registration or a subdomain registration with IDNA protocol 2003. It will create a confusion. Okay, over a period of time it will create. And if you are already given away domain names with 2003, it is a time to actually what is so called the change them to the new protocol. Okay, that's very important, because otherwise there will be a conflict in terms of the domain name. Okay, very few cases are there where there will be conflict. So the IDNA 2003 protocol was based upon Unicode 3.2, while the IDNA 2008 protocol is it is independent of Unicode version. So you may be wondering that if I to basically validate a domain name or give away the domain name, then you are asking us to use the library. Yes, we are asking us to use the library. And whether I need to change the libraries very often? No, you need not change the libraries at all. So once the code has been written, once the libraries are frozen, I don't think you have to change the libraries at all. That's a very important what is so called the I can use the word innovation which has happened into the protocol, because the previous protocol 2003 protocol was restricted to Unicode 3.2 only, and whenever additional languages got added, there was no rules applied, and then you were permitted to so called the permitted to register for the domain name. But if you look at the IDNA 2008 protocol, the Unicode versions are changing. They are frequently changing. And now today we have got, I think, 15 version and maybe 16th version and 17th version, because new characters get added, new languages get added. Okay, the character properties get changes and so on and so forth. So if you look at a Unicode properly, Unicode is not all about encoding. It has got a lot of knowledge base inside the Unicode. Okay, so each character has got property. It is a well-defined property, and those properties are very important, and those are unique property to that particular character. Okay, so we have got a half width characters, we have got a full width characters, then we have got different properties like symbols and this, and which I am going to talk about. And those properties are being made use now. So if any new encoding comes up, basically, or any not encoding, any new character comes up or any new language gets added, actually instead of now looking at the code point, the property of the code point is been majorly been dealt with. Okay, so if a code point is being encoded newly, then its property become important for the so-called the library. So you don't have to change library. So as I said to you, the libraries have become Unicode version agnostic. It is very easier to understand. It is more predictable when languages and scripts are applied and used, and more adaptable to the regional requirement. Okay, as I explained to you, the IDNA protocols which are there are devised mainly to include the latest and current version of Unicode, permissible and valid character repository. So which necessarily mean that there are 159 languages and scripts and different tables are there. So we also have done the same exercise, that what characters for each language should be permitted, which language not to be permitted. So those tables are being made. Those tables have now been a part of something called the root zone label generation rules, as well as there are tables related to the variant generation rules, which I am going to just talk about the variants part of it basically. Okay, so we have got something called the what are permissible and what are the valid character repositories, and so on and so forth. And then there are certain rules which are that no script mixing is allowed. Then language tables are there for permissible characters, and variant generation program is also there. Okay, so this is the general basic of a IDNA protocol. And IDNA protocol have been developed to resolve many, if not all, including all of them bidirectional spoofing. So I think IDNA protocol is much more safer than previously no protocol within. I'm not going to use no protocol, but that was not a need also. It is much more secure than ASCII. This is my opinion, as a personal opinion. IDNA 2008 protocol is much more secure, or rather it takes care of more things than it was been taken care in ASCII. Okay, so you can safely get to IDNA 2008 protocol. So these are two protocols, and these are some of the RFCs. You can just have a look at it separately. Okay, and okay, I will skip this portion. Now on the last some of the few slides on this particular portion, if you look at if you are a registry people, then there is certain rules and regulations to be utilized. You are a registrar people, and then there is something called the registrant. Okay, so registrant is the somebody who would like to get a domain name. He comes to the registrar's website. Registrar may have an online mechanism basically for entering the desired Indian language or any language domain name, and it backend it checks whether it is available, not available, and also it should be able to spew out variants basically of those, and give an option to the client that whether he requires them or he doesn't require them or what to do. So this type of rules and regulations registry has to take care that whether you have to give the variants or you have to block the variants. It may be likely that in the five words or 5 characters, not words, 5 characters domain name or label, you may have a number of variants getting generated. Means maybe it might run into some few hundreds also. So such type of an algorithm, variant generation algorithm, needs to be in place at the registry level. So so one is the registrant. As I said, for the registrant you require a good font, quality font to be displayed so that there is no confusion when he's trying to get a domain name. Then a keyboard inputting mechanism needs to be there, and this keyboard inputting mechanism should not permit, if you selects a language, then it should not permit other languages characters inside that. So this is a simple check one can do that for the registrar's software. Okay, then if you come to the registry basically, then registry obviously has to have the IDNA 2008 protocol. So there are 3 levels of what is so called the compliances one need to look at it. One is at a global level, which means that some of the rules and regulations which has been followed globally, which is at a ICANN level. So that is where the IDNA 2008 protocol came. Okay, so it is to be followed rigorously. Okay, IDNA 2008. Then sometimes what happened is that we were running, actually Nixie was running and is running .in registry. Okay, and while running a .in registry, certain rules and regulations, broader rules and regulations were also made. Okay, so I'm only talking about the technical rules. I'm not talking about a dispute resolution policy over here. And what we did at that point of time, that for internationalized domain name like .bharat, we have not changed the .in rules very much, but we have adapted those rules and tried to use those rules and try to be around those only for .bharat. So there is no major change which we were expecting while moving from .in to .bharat. Okay, so there are 3 levels of rules as I explained to you. One is at a ICANN level, which is global level, and at a registry level, one can actually be compliant with .in also as well as the .bharat also. So this is how the certain rules have been made. And in Indian language perspective, from the registry side, if you want to really look at it, there is one more important point which we added, which was like a variant generation engine. Okay, so in the variant generation engine, I will explain to you the variant generation engine where it is. Let's skip this portion. Okay, okay. So if you look at this particular portion, that if you refer to my first slide, then the Indian languages are syllabic in nature, as I explained to you, and we generally treat a syllable as one unit. Okay, and hence in the our Nixie registry, there is something, an engine. That engine takes care of valid syllable formation. Okay, so this is a valid syllable formation engine. So if you input something from the keyboard like kitab, this is the another way which this is the wrong what is so called the syllable. This is the wrong syllable. So if you put something like this to the validation engine, it will say which is valid, which is not valid. And this type of a syllable validation engine is in place in Nixie. Okay, this is not a requirement from the ICANN side, but this is to further protect ourselves, because one cannot take matra .bharat, and that doesn't mean, because then the chances of spoofing and phishing are much more larger. So in that case, our Nixie registry, we are being little bit more careful that you cannot take any arbitrary domain name. That domain name should be at least a valid syllable. The characters within that should be at least valid syllable. So there is a validation engine inside that. There is also something called the variant generation engine. Though this variant generation engine is also now a part of at a ICANN level, for the TLDs basically. But we do have a variant generation engine within the registry also, which will spew out different so-called the variants. Means, for example, if you look at mudra.bharat, suppose this is the mudra and .bharat. So the variant generation engine will spew out this part. What are these? They look similar basically, mudra, but these are not same. Actually, this is with na halan da, and this is ga halan da, but all at a small point sizes they are looking same. And this is how a lot of work has gone inside this to understand this. ABNF is very clear because this is augmented Bhaskar formalism, which is a very standard mechanism of our script basically, syllable formation rules and so on and so forth. But while this variant generation engine within the script, so this is within the script, I'm not talking about outside script. If you look at outside script, then the combinations will be much more larger, and hence in the domain name policy we are not permitting mixing of the script. So one cannot have a label, I'm going to use the word label, consisting of Gujarati characters and let us say Devanagari characters put together. So that is not permissible. Okay. So there are certain rules and regulations, and these are part of a IDNA protocol also. So this is the variant generation engine. So this was as I explained to you, root level generation engine, a similar way, but at a global level. Okay. And fortunately we do have the root zone level generation engines for almost all the languages, and one can use that to give away the second level like subdomains also basically. Okay, I'll skip this portion. Okay, so there are as I said to you, it's there is a global policy at ICANN level, there is a regional policy of India level, and we are little bit more stringent in terms of the formation of the rules, regulations, characters, and so on and so forth. So there are some challenges, and those have been addressed. Means, for example, if you look at Marathi, I don't know how many Marathi people have joined over here, but if you know Marathi, then there is something called a very specific typical character is there. In some particular words it has been used, only one or two instances of a words it has been used, and this is something referred to the eyelash row. So it's like a little bit curved line, unlike the hyphen. Hyphen is straight one, while this is something called the curved line. And now we have got a rule that if this hyphen comes before the her or ya character, because in only two cases it is coming. Okay, ya and her. If it comes, then reject that. Okay, because hyphen is not permitted. Hyphen, though it is in LDH, it is permitted. In our case, specifically for these two cases, it is not permitted because it has supposedly to go. If you look at a TV onto the basically the tickers and everything, unfortunately they don't have any mechanism to produce eyelash row, and they generally tend to use a hyphen. So if you notice carefully, they are using hyphen, and this is where the cause of confusion might come. And that is where at registry level we require our own rules and regulations, and at a ICANN level, whatever rules are there, we definitely need to bound to use that. Now, last slide, last one or two things I just wanted to put it for you. That as I said to you already, we have got all 22 languages delegated. They have been operational also. Registrars are already registering domain names. However, there has to be a little stronger mechanism to find out variants, then to either block or give away, and so on and so forth. At registrars, there are various softwares being used at between registry and registrars, especially the EPP software, then the cPanel softwares, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, the latest study shows that the cPanel and other, though they are accepting UTF-8, they are not still UA compliant. So I need to just highlight that one need to definitely make an effort to have those also basically UA compliant, and that's a whole separate studies available on the onto the USAG site. You can have, I can, if somebody is interested, I can pass on that documents to you, or I can pass on that link to you, and you can actually see it for yourself. And any help is required, we are there to help you out basically. And the registry, as I said to you, should follow 2008 protocol, and 2003 can be transitional. So whichever websites you are already given in 2003 under the 2003 protocol, please migrate them to 2008, and all the registry should adopt 2008. That's very, very important, because then everything will be safeguarded. Because as I said, regional specific policy is language tables are there, optionally variant generation are there, syllable validation rules are there, and those you don't have to worry, because that those type of stuff are being already implemented at the registry level. Registrars only need to take care of their softwares which are talking to the registry, and vice versa. They should be compliant basically fully. Okay. And ICANN defines the stages. USAG defines the stages of compliances, UA compliances. So there is a stage 1 compliance, stage 2 compliance, stage 3 compliances. So stage 1 compliance, which means that if your systems and softwares and devices is able to accept a new TLD, new rather ASCII TLD, which is new short, and if it is able to accept a new long, then I think you are compatible stage 1, UA compliance stage 1. While stage 2 is your system should be accepting IDN, basically internationalized domain names, okay, through and through, like the 5 parameters which I explained to you. One is accept, validate, then store, and then process on input, process on output, and display. So this should go through all these stages. So it will be termed as a stage 2 compliance. So UA defines 3 stages of compliances. And the third one is that the email address internationalization, which necessarily means that if you are getting an email from a client from a website from the form, then you should be able to communicate back to the same email ID. That is the internationalized email ID. If somebody is providing an internationalized email ID, we should be able to actually communicate back onto the same email ID as is been done with an ASCII. But life is not as simple, just because of the fact that the email goes between different hops, and each hop basically wherever it may not necessarily they are supporting SMTP UTF-8 for as a protocol. So it definitely everybody in the chain should be compatible, and there are phases, as I explained to you, that one should go for phase-wise approach. In terms of that, you cannot solve all the problem at one go. You can solve one by one, and we are very hopeful that we will be soon become EI enabled. Okay, if you look at EAI, there are 2 parts of EAI, email address internationalization. If you look at Gmail, or if you look at Microsoft email and others also, they are supporting. If you have got a internationalized email, then you can send and receive the mail properly. But what happens is that there are very few players available who are able to create the mailboxes. So in these terms, for EI, it is if it is sending and receiving IDN email is possible, then it is termed as a level 1 compliant. And if you are also able to give away email IDs in your own language, like creation of a mailboxes in your own languages, then that is as a level 2, and we will be expecting a level 2 compliances, which will be a full and final UA compliances for all your systems, devices, and software. I think I will stop here, because I explained to you the whole stuff in terms of basically the protocols. The protocol discussion will be very in depth, basically what I feel. One second, let me stop sharing this part. I'll just put my video on. Yeah. So the protocol side, implementation side is very simple, as I explained to you. And there are libraries available. Ready-made libraries are available, and they are under the open licenses. The libraries are available for some of them are built-in also. If you look at PHP has got a built-in feature. .NET has also got built-in feature. Java is also now having a built-in feature of IDNA, all these libraries. And Python libraries are also there. So I think it is just a matter of using the libraries and making your software compatible. It's a very simple. It's not so complex, which I explained to you. This explanation was indeed required to get into the depth, to understand where the changes are required, and so on and so forth. So if you look at making your website, let us say UA compliant, the first step is that you test it out, that if there is a form onto the website, try to type inside internationalized mail, and see to it that what type of errors it is throwing out. Okay, so once you look at the errors, then one can inspect that what type of attribute I am using. So if you are using an input element, if you are using an email attribute, it might reject, because it's a default HTML, as I explained to you. So it will reject the email ID, internationalized email ID. So then in that case, you have to use an attribute text and use the libraries to validate, or either you use the email attribute and bypass that, and use the libraries which are ready-made available. I think it's absolutely simple. There is a huge amount of what is called the knowledge which I can as produce. I think thanks to the community, thanks to USAG, they have done a wonderful work. Obviously, community is involved into this fully end to end, and we are hopeful. I've actually tried some of the websites to become UA compliant, and as well as some of the software devices and so on and so forth. People have got a good opinion after looking at the documents, and after having such type of a sessions, they felt that it can be just done in the first part, that the stage one can be completed in just half hour. And that is how it is made simple. And if you look at the internationalized part of it to acceptance stage 2, then they say that okay, they have to look at the email side also. But however, leaving away the email side, acceptance of the internationalized domain name into the system and storing into the databases and other things, I think they said that it might take maximum 1 day or 2 days basically to do that. So it's as simple as that. I will stop here, and as Sarika was explaining to you that definitely these are all knowledge sharing sessions. It cannot be completed in just some few hours. Some of the depth requirement, if somebody has got, they can definitely ask us offline. And as Sarika was indicating, that we do have a hackathon on 4th of November, coming full day. And in that, this type of session, precursor will be also been taken, so that whosoever participating, they will understand where the changes need to be done. We will be also sharing the libraries which are available, and we will be guiding you through the whole process of making your website, at least your form, UA compatible. So you can replicate that, or you can look at that. And in that, there are 2 stages. One is the stage 1, as I explained to you. If your stage in the stage 1, if the new long and new short or a short are being taken care of, then we will expect that stage 1 is completed. And stage 1 plus stage 2, if somebody completes, then I think we do have as a motivational mechanism award. I think it's apart from motivation, I think it is a very fundamental thing that if you do it, then you become a role model for others to follow. Your website will be highlighted. We will be seeing to it that okay, these guys have done beautifully. Why not you do it? And this is where I appeal to everybody. If you want to have this mission accomplished of multilingual internet, then I think everybody should be in sync together. And this is not all about how much efforts it take or how much resources it take, but it is actually a social requirement. And I personally feel that each and every person listening to this should participate and make India proud, as well as make the multilingual internet success. Thank you. If anybody has got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maheshi, for taking us through the detailing of the UA implementation, the technical aspects of it, and how businesses can easily try to imbibe it in terms of their implementing URLs and all. Like you mentioned, stage 1 is very, very easy. So we hope that the audience who are with us today are able to at least go through the stage 1 in their businesses. And if they have any questions and queries in this regard, we are more than happy to facilitate that through you, like I mentioned in the starting of the session also. And we also having a hackathon where, of course, the complete detailing of stage 1, 2 would be taught, and then of course people would be asked to do it in their current businesses. So we also encourage everybody who's listening here today to kindly join us there for the 4th November session, which is a physical session, and it's a hackathon, training come hackathon, which we are organizing it in with the partnership of Readiness. So with this, we have come to the conclusion of this session. With it, do we have any questions from the audience currently?
Yes, ma'am. We have few questions, but given their technical in nature, I think it should be taken offline.
Okay. So then Maheshi, with it, would send those details to you separately, and maybe then request you to help in solving those questions with the current members who have raised it up, so that we can help them out. So fine with it. So just make a note of it and share a mail with Maheshi later on.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think that should be fine. And as you, I repeat again, though you have already covered that portion, in the hackathon, we will be with the members only implementing.
Yeah.
we'll guide them through the whole process basically of implementing. So there should not be any fear in terms of whether I should be able to do it. We all need to see that you should be able to do it. This is I personally feel it, and people will do it. So only readiness should be there, and our team will guide you through the process of making you a compliant. And at the end of the day, you will be more than happy, more than knowledgeable rather. The best part is that you will be knowledgeable in terms of, and and you become a UA champion further. Yeah, thank you.
So like you've heard Maheshji, the people who have also put up questions, while we will share with him offline, we request you to kindly join us for the 4th November session. So that would be a good learning session where you have hands-on training and also a chance to do it online at that time itself. So please join us there. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this session today. We are thankful to our experts who have joined us today, Dr. Ajay Data, Mr. Ankumar Jain, and of course, our technical and subject matter expert, Maheshji, who has taken us through the training. So with the support of all of you, we are able to deliver this session as part of local initiative chapter of UA and as a pre-IIGF activity. We look forward to have many more sessions in future with all of you. And of course, the audience, please stay connected with us, contribute in the community. There are various ways in which you can learn, become knowledgeable, and also participate and make more people become, more businesses become UA ready. So with this, we come to the conclusion of the session. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.